Just to follow on with that Fibonacci caliper and the division of with the ground reaction foot, I've got a new College Park foot here, which is very nice little breeze. I like using this foot. It's a very hardy foot. The foot shell is strong. It doesn't disintegrate after 2 years. You've got another thing which is very nice on this breeze foot is that it's a low profile foot, and it does have a keel component that you have to slide in, which is obviously also, I think, carbon. And it's got your little your Spectra sock, which is nice for, very much like all the other feet. They also got the little Spectra sock. And yeah, I can just show you also is that these feet don't come with a marker or a demarcation area where you can see where your ground reaction force needs to run through. But I just want to just quickly show you guys. I just did the measurements now, and we take half the foot and then you -3, and then you get this. Normally you get your ground reaction, and I just wanted to just show you over here exactly how precise it is, this Fibonacci caliper, on how precise you can get the ground reaction force splitting the foot up. Okay, so guys, that's another interesting thing over there. Okay, I'm just going to do a short video on bench alignment for a TT. So this is a test socket. I know that you guys maybe just think, well, this looks like a definitive socket, but it's not. I prefer to make my test sockets and from a composite for a few reasons. I think that one reason is that it's lightweight. The second is that it's extremely strong. It's going to emulate what the actual final socket would feel like, and it's also very good for like a long-term use. So if you using your prosthesis for the test period of you want to send your client home for more than, let's say, 4 or 5 months or 6 months, that's a very good way, I think, for myself personally, to make a test socket. Okay, so it's a carbon. You can see these sections. I've got carbon tape in the sections, which I got from Ortholam. They sell a very nice carbon tape. Okay, so let's get onto it. You can see over here we've got it's a vac, so we've got a little valve there. I haven't washed this out yet, so it's still it's like kind of a bit dirty inside there, but we'll wash it out later. It's not important now. And the next thing to do is to actually figure out on which adapter to use. I many times find that, like, if you've got a very heavy patient, then this type of adapter may not be 100% suitable unless you maybe use nuts and bolts to be able to drive it straight into the socket, and that can give you a little bit of a better secure point. Another option is to use a 3-prong male adapter. This one doesn't have a rotation, so you have to be kind of careful about where you're going to locate it, because rotation is obviously important. But for the tests phase, it's not really that important, because you can always use a slide adapter to get your orientation, whether it's going to be in the coronal plane or the sagittal plane. Guy over here now, I'm not going to use this, and not besides the fact that it's actually broken, but I just wanted to show you this. I'm going to use this little 4-prong adapter. It's a titanium adapter, so nice and light, and we can see there it says titanium. And yeah, so let's get onto it, and let's see how we're going to set this up. Right, so I've got my little foot block here, which I made a while ago while I was still at the varsity, and I'm just using a 1 centimeter little raise there, just very basic. And so we've put our little breeze foot in here. I've got a little tube here with a carbon pipe. which is just going to be utilized. Really, this guy's got a very long CK, but I may have to increase the height of that. But for now, we're going as close as we can to the original CK, which is also referred to the center knee. And just as a matter of interest, I know a lot of people that take their tube clamp adapters and just kind of align it so that the tube clamp adapter, this alignment line, they use this as the alignment line, and then place this maybe in the coronal plane. So I like to place it facing forward, so that you can easily get to it. And if you need to do a quick rotation on the foot and give it more toe out, so I can get to it easier. And that's really kind of why I prefer to put it over there, but that's just my explanation for that. Just in case anybody thinks that it's the wrong way around. Okay, so let's get going. We've got that over there. We've got our vector mark, so we know that that is where our ground reaction force is running through. Okay, coming up from the ground into the leg. Okay, now let's get going with this. We're first going to get our little 4-prong adapter, and I'm going to remove some of these little grub screws. Really, this is a very basic alignment, and most people do know how to do this, and this is just really for education purposes. We've got our little grub screws on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to align this in the coronal plane. So I got my little Lazy Susan again. We'll put that on there. Okay, that's great. Now let's just see where the orientation is going to go, because we need to see that first. I'm going to put my laser on. Alright, so here we got our little laser on there, and in theory it should be okay, but I can already see there's a few issues here. So we obviously have to take in consideration so let's just get our coronal plane right. Okay, and let's get that side right. I probably would have liked this the laser line to run through the actual grub screw, but you can see what happens over here. We're not worried about where it's going to run through the grub screw. We're worried about where it's going to run through the socket itself. So I'm going to just hit it over there on our sagittal plane and get it right on our coronal plane. So I know now that those two are right. All right, and then I'm going to just see exactly where I'm going to be placing the socket. So the first thing I would want to do is I'm going to divide the socket into, I'm going to quarter it quickly, and to quarter it you want to use your 50-50 tool. So I'm going to just start off by placing my 50-50 tool here. It's my little marker, right, and 50 tool there. Okay, and then come down here. Go there. Okay, and I like to do my alignment from the lateral side. So we're just going to give a lateral. This is the fibular head there, and I'm coming down and doing my little alignments over there. Okay, so we've got our sagittal alignments, and we've got our coronal alignments. Just to make it a bit easier for all of us to see, I'm going to just trace it out. I've got my little makeshift little ruler here, and we draw a little line. Okay, and we're going to draw this one as well. I put a bit of press stick on the end of that so that it doesn't move around. So all the little tips and tricks. that you learn over the years. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. Okay, now let's get going. All right, so the first thing I want to do is let's just see if everything's still alignment. I haven't bumped anything, and that's right there, and that's right there. That looks good. Okay, now let's just put this socket on. Let's see how close we are. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust this. All right, so you can quickly see that I am close, all right, but I have to move the socket a little bit more anterior. This is obviously posterior, so I have to move my socket a bit anterior. This gentleman does not have a huge flexion contracture. He's been walking for a while, so this is his second prosthesis that he's getting after 5 years. And okay, so we can see we need to bring it forward. That's the first thing I need to see, and you can see how far it is away there. So we got quite a gap over there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do to fill that up. I like to use this wax. This is just like a pattern maker's wax. You could use plasticine, but the plasticine gets all over your fingers, so I prefer the wax. And you can get the wax from Ortholam. Oh, sorry, you can get the wax from AMT, Advanced Materials Technology. So I'm just going to place my piece of wax over there now and just a little bit too much. Okay, what do we got here? Let's see. Give it a little bit of flexion. Alright, what do we got there? Alright, that's not too bad. You see it runs through the socket there. Alright, so we can see it doesn't look too bad here in the sagittal plane. Let's just turn it and see what it looks like in the coronal plane. So here we go. So you can see, yeah, we're a little bit off, so we need to definitely move it more medially. I'm just going to shift it a little bit. Try and keep it stable while you're doing that. Okay, that looks better. A little bit more. Now remember, you don't want to turn it or twist it or rotate it. You just want to shift it. Like you're using a shift adapter, you're going to shift it in one plane. So you got that. No, that doesn't look too bad there. Now let's see what this side looks like. Okay, not too bad. Got a little bit of a discrepancy over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit. Okay, and that looks good. Okay, so we're coming up through the midway of the socket over here. Coming down, we've got a nice about a 5 degree flexion contracture. I mean flexion. We've got 5 degrees flexion, which I like to use between 4 and 5. And we've got a good coronal plane alignment. Okay, so we're looking good. The first thing now to do is to be able to transfer this across. Now I don't have I'm not going to put this up in a transfer jig or anything like that. I don't have a fancy Ottobock transfer jig, so this is just going to be done by eye. So let's get going. All right, the first thing I want to do, I'm just going to mark out where my alignment line should be. And I've got that little mark there, and I've got my mark here. I only really need a few, just maybe one reference point, just so when I put my glue on, I know exactly where that's going to go. All right, so what can we observe here? First thing I want to mention to you is that once you've got that right, don't move this, just keep that in place. I can see what I have to do here. I have to put quite a heap of glue here and to shift it forward. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, but you've only got a bit of time to be able to work with that glue, so we have to do it quite quickly. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to mix that up now. All right, I'm just gonna put some glue on now. I use fibril. I know that some people might judge me and say, well, fibril is not the correct glue to use, and I need to use special prosthetic glue. But I've used both. I've used the 30 seconds or the 60 seconds, and it's okay. It's very expensive, but that's not the real reason why I don't use it. I find that the fibril holds a little bit better, and as long as you don't use your fibril as your main unit to try and keep everything together, it's just really just going to be used for your socket, just to seat it correctly onto the actual adapter, so that your socket is all its weight is going onto the adapter. It's not really going onto the actual glue. The glue is just orientating the socket correctly. And then of course when you finish doing that, you're going to be taping up that area anyways, so that, and you know, put bolts in over here as well. So I mean, really you're taking every single precaution necessary to maintain safety for your clients, okay, for your amputee. Okay, let's get going. So I'm going to just push out a little bit of a draw there. And I can see I'm going to need quite a bit there, but let's see how it goes. Okay, my catalyst. I think everybody knows this fibril. It's very useful. We've been using this for a long time. This fibril is mostly used in the auto industry, and it's a fiberglass glue, which is hella strong. Okay, let's get going. So I'm going to remove that piece. I'm going to put a wad on there. Okay, let's not mess it up. Put a little bit there. I don't need a lot. I'm just going to have enough so that it can be nicely seated, because we're going to be bolting it on anyway. So okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, let's check our planes. Okay, looks good, and we haven't bumped anything. Okay, yeah, looks good. All right, let's get going. So we kind of know that we've got our little reference line there, so we know where that must go. I'm going to bring it in, and we're just going to place it. And I'm starting to straighten it out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to turn it. Let's see what we got here. It's not bad, it's not bad. I'm going to just bring it over a little bit more. It's a bit of a tilt. A little bit more. Okay. Now obviously the smaller you know, if you need more tilts or whatever, you can always do that in the adapters. So I'm just going to neaten this up a little bit. Okay, let's see. Okay, not bad, not bad. I'm going to just move this across a little bit. I haven't got much time to work on this, but there you go. That's about right there. And let's see what it looks like in this plane. It's not bad. I'm going to just straighten it out a little bit more. It's got too much flexion. Okay, and I'm also going to move it forward a little bit. Okay, we've, I think, just about reached the end of that, to be able to safely move it without it making too many maracas. Okay, that's tilted. Now sometimes I use some tape. If it's a larger socket, I'd use some tape just to keep it down, but the fibril seems to hold it quite nicely. Alright, so that's not bad. Yeah, I've got my line running through the midline over there. I've got a little bit of flexion contraction. I've got a bit of flexion in here, and I can always take the flexion out if necessary because you can see my little grub screw over there is sticking out a little bit. So to give it some more flexion, I would just drive that grub screw further in. So I'm not too worried about that. Okay, let's see the back. See what's happening over here. Okay. Right, so we orientate that. Look, that looks good. No. And that also looks good. Alrighty. I'd like to have a look over here. You can our reference line at the back of it, and posteriorly we can see whether or not it's straight. Obviously that's up to our plaster work, so sometimes that's not straight, but that looks good. And yeah, so I think I'm just going to leave it like that, and that's your bench alignment for you for a transtibial prosthesis. And so quickly we've shown you, we've got this one over here. And you can see I've got this one also in a little bit more flexion, because this guy's actually got a flexure contracture. It's a much smaller person. So yeah, so we're ready for this guy to come and do a test, and we'll be ready for this guy also to come in and do a test. Okay, thanks guys. Right, so we got a little continuation of our setup. Remember the last little one we did was we got our socket for our transtibial prosthesis. Here you can see I've just kind of very rough at the moment with the fibril that we spoke about, and now I'm going to show you how I actually get this these bolts, because we're going to attach bolts on over here for additional support. Just take your drill and try and get it as straight as you can. Alright, so let's see. You're doing alright. Let's look on the inside. It's a little bit rough there on the inside. A little bit rough. I'm just going to smooth that down a little bit. Alright, so we've done some deburring. That should be fine. Now I'm going to show you what we do. Yeah. So normally what I like to use is obviously 4mm drill bit, and I like to use a cheese head bolt. Okay, and these are all stainless steel. So I'm just taking out the little corresponding nuts. So now you're going to ask, okay, well, what the hell am I going to do over here? This is all sticking out. So yeah, a little bit of work still need to be done here. Right, so I'm just going to grind that cheese head down so that we make a nice dome. Got two cones. I keep one cone specifically for doing foot orthotics and grinding shoes, and then I've got another cone here, and that I use, you can see it's a little bit more worn, specifically for my carbon fiber and steel, so don't mess up the other cone. So really what I do is I just swap the cones around. When this cone starts getting smoother and smoother, I like the 50 grit. I always go for the 50 grit. It's probably my best go-to. But as this starts to go, and then eventually this will become the steel and carbon one, and then I'll put a new one onto this cone. Okay, so just I'm not going to put the vac on because we're going to grind some steel. So alright, there you can see it's got a nice little dome, and yeah, so nice there. And then I'll do the rest of those. So always try and remember to wear protective eyewear. I know that it's everybody just thinks that, you know, that it's not maybe so important, or that nothing can get into your eye. But a few years ago, quick story, while I insert these, you can see I'm going to insert these now. They're nice and got a little dome on the end over there, so they're not going to stick out too much. So we're going to insert this, but let me tell you a little story. So a couple of years ago, I was grinding carbon fiber socket And so I never had, at that time I never actually used protective glasses, because you never actually get anything in your eye. It's like, so a piece of carbon came off that socket, and it went into my eye. I actually didn't even know it was in my eye until the next day when my eye was all swollen. And I took out a centimeter piece of carbon fiber, but I tell you what, I absolutely got, I just went cold when I saw that piece of carbon fiber that I pulled out of my eye, the doctor pulled out of my eye. And then I realized that, you know, you're so close to losing your eye. And in this business, I think that it's important to have both eyes. One eye can give you a problem, although you can, I suppose, do it, you can still do your job, but no one wants to lose an eye. So just as a heads up, guys, I know that there's some orthotists that have been out there and been practicing for years without getting a single thing in their eye. It's just going to be that one day that piece of carbon or piece of steel comes and smacks you in the eye, and then, you know what, so it's better just to get into the habit of wearing safety glasses all the time. Right, so I've got those in. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to tighten this up, and I'm going to cut these off. And let's look at the inside. Oh, that doesn't look bad. They're still sticking out, but now we've got a vac situation over here. So if we don't seal those off at the bottom, it's going to suck air in from the bottom where these little nuts come in, or sorry, where the little bolts went in. So yeah, I'm going to tighten this up, and then we can. Now that we've tightened these bolts, I need to cut these ends off. Pretty simple, just a hacksaw. If you've got a special type of cutting tool, I suppose you could cut it, but yeah, that's going to be a tough one. So I'm just going to cut those quickly. Right, so I showed you looked inside over there, and now we need to just close off all those little holes. And I just want to show you guys this over here. So we got these two little resins. It's F160. You get an F180 as well, but this is the F160. And just be careful over there, guys. So if you're doing a big pour, you need to wear a mask, so you don't want it to destroy your lungs. Okay, it's and also called isocyanate, or better known as polyol. Okay, so we got these two, A and B, and I'm going to quickly show you how I do a pour. This here is just a pigment. It's called So Strong. Now the little covers already come off. You can see it's just very sticky, but I'm going to mix this with the F160, and we're going to get a good color. So let's get going on that. Just going to weigh it up. So we've got our little cup, and normally this B can crystallize a little bit there, so you just have to open it with the monkey pliers. Okay, it doesn't really matter which one you pour first, but I'm gonna pour the thicker one first, which is the A, and I don't need a lot, so let's get going. So we're just gonna go in, and I'm gonna go for 20. There we go. So 20 grams of that, and 20 of this will make it 40. There we go. Now I'm just going to take out my So Strong. This stuff is so freaking messy. So I'm just going to dip the end in there, and I'm just going to mix it up. Now guys, this is also, just get some eye protection on this. You don't want the stuff to splash. As you can see, it just splashed on my hand over there, so you don't want that stuff to splash in your eye. So just be careful, just mix it up a bit. You can just swirl it as well. It's swirlable. Okay, I want to pour it straight in. That's enough. Just a little bit. And I'm just swirling it a bit at the bottom. Hoping that it's not coming out the bottom, a little bit at the bottom there. It's not too bad. It's going to set pretty quick. It was actually Paul Craig had told me about this little trick. Thanks, Paul. And but I don't know if Paul knows about the so strong to color it, so that's also pretty cool. So the next question you're going to ask me is where we get this from. You can buy this from AMT, Advanced Materials Technology. Alright, so that's sealed. The next thing we're going to do is put our vac in. Alright, so we've got this set up now. This is nice and secured. I will be adding some fiberglass tape around over here just to support it a little bit more. We're going to quickly just do the valve. I'm going to put the valve in. Here we've got the little housing that comes at the back, a little dummy, and I just want to just show you guys this. So I think I mentioned when I was busy setting up the prosthesis, I was using this pattern maker's wax, and this is very nice to get a good seal. If you're using silicone for your final prosthesis or your definitive, that's fine, but this works very nicely if you just want to get a quick vac without putting anything in there that's going to be permanent. So I'm just going to pop that in there, and we're going to drive this through, and then of course this is the valve itself. This is the OSSA 551 expulsion valve, and you know what, out of all the valves, I've used quite a few valves. This one for me, it really does the trick. It's a good valve. It can also be cleaned quite easily as well, so you can remove this little rubber and you can clean it out. And sometimes you get a bit of hair stuck in over here in this section, but it's easy to clean out if necessary. So let's get going. Just gonna 10mm hole. Okay. Once you got that placement, then you don't want to just have it so that it's very tight. You might strip this. So what you want to do is push it through and get it so that it first takes from the other side, and then make sure that you can then tighten it. So don't try and push it through and try and tighten it. I've stripped many of these in my life. Hand tighten is fine. You don't need to tighten it with anything else but your hand. What we do want is, we don't want it to stick out too much, because that can damage the sleeve. Okay, so that looks fine, and we're just going to pop that on there. There we go. Right, so we got our vac ready. Now we can put our prosthetic foot on, and we can do a trial. Thank you.